is the key to this, and the constitution that underpins the monarchy.
What if the future of the British monarchy hinged on a heartbreaking choice? At 74, Princess Anne has broken decades of silence to reveal King Charles's final, shocking wish. He chose Prince Harry to be king, but only if he leaves Meghan Markle behind. Tonight, we dive deep into a secret that stunned Prince William and Harry alike. A royal ultimatum that pits love against legacy, loyalty against duty. What does this mean for the crown, the family, and the future of the monarchy? Stay tuned. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The room was silent, save for the slow ticking of the antique grandfather clock that had witnessed centuries of royal drama. Princess Anne sat upright, her eyes fixed on a small stack of handwritten notes resting gently on her lap. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment she knew could alter the very course of the British monarchy. At 74, the Princess Royal had spent her entire life navigating the shadows of royal men. Father, brother, nephew, without ever once stepping into the spotlight for her own gain. But today was different. Today, she would speak. And when she did, the monarchy would never be the same. My brother's final wish, and began, her voice low and measured, was not what you think. It wasn't a message of unity or forgiveness. It was a condition, a trait, an ultimatum. She paused, letting the room absorb the shock. He said, "The crown is yours, Harry, if you leave her behind." The words detonated like a bomb in the quiet hall of Balmoral. Members of the family stared at each other in disbelief. Prince William's jaw clenched visibly. Camilla turned pale. And somewhere, far from the palace walls, Prince Harry would soon feel the aftershocks of a revelation that would shake the foundations of everything he believed about his father and himself. This was no mere palace rumor. It was a personal truth, whispered in a final moment of vulnerability by a dying monarch to the only sibling he trusted with his soul. Princess Anne had kept that truth buried for nearly a year, believing that silence would preserve dignity. But silence, she now realized, only fed the storm. This is the story of that final wish, how it shattered royal expectations, divided brothers already at odds, and left the British public questioning everything they thought they knew about loyalty, love, and legacy. Because behind closed doors, King Charles did not see Prince William as the obvious heir. He saw a burdened man, tied to tradition, fearful of change. And he saw something else in Harry. He saw fire. He saw heart. He saw the one thing a modern monarchy desperately needs: connection. But that vision came with a cost, a price that only Harry could pay. This video will take you deep into the hidden corridors of royal power, where legacy is written not in gold, but in silence, secrets, and impossible decisions. Over the next chapters, you'll hear how Princess Anne broke her silence. You'll learn why King Charles believed Harry had the charisma, global reach, and emotional instinct that William lacked. And you'll confront the harsh truth that the crown, once thought to be an inheritance, was nearly offered as a conditional reward. The stakes could not be higher. If Harry were to accept the crown under the condition of divorcing Meghan Markle, it would not only redefine modern monarchy, it would destroy the very foundations of his family. But if he refused, it would cement William's destiny as king, albeit with the ghost of his father's doubt forever haunting him. Let's rewind for a moment. The final days of King Charles III were cloaked in public diplomacy, but defined privately by illness and introspection. We saw a monarch smiling for the cameras, attending engagements, shaking hands, but behind the scenes, doctors monitored his every breath. Painkillers dulled the physical pain, but nothing could numb the emotional torment of a father watching his two sons drift irreparably apart. The legacy he had hoped to pass on was no longer clear. William and Harry, once so close, now stood oceans and principles apart. That is why Charles summoned Anne. Not Camilla. Not even William. Anne. Because Anne had been his constant. She had never betrayed him, never sought glory, never played political games. She had endured royal life with military precision and unwavering loyalty. If anyone could hold this final message, protect it, and one day deliver it with care, it was her. What she carried wasn't a will. It wasn't a formal document. It was something far heavier. It was her brother's dying hope and his deepest regret. But why reveal it now? And had wrestled with that question for months. She watched as William shouldered the duties of kingship in all but name, stepping into the vacuum of leadership as Charles's health deteriorated. She watched Harry and Meghan's public image morph into that of celebrities rather than royals. She watched public trust in the monarchy splinter, the younger generation increasingly disengaged, suspicious, weary. And then came the leak. Someone inside the palace, maybe a bitter aide, maybe a misplaced email, began whispering that Charles had left behind a different plan. The tabloids circled like vultures. Anonymous sources claimed Charles had told confidants he had doubts about William's temperament. Others swore they had heard him praise Harry's authenticity. One even claimed Charles said, "Harry has Diana's soul," and could not stand by any longer. If half-truths were going to stain her brother's legacy, she would rather the full truth be known. Not the spin, not the fantasy, just the raw, unfiltered truth. And so, she stepped in front of the cameras, her voice trembling slightly but her message clear. It was never about blood, she said. It was about heart. Those 7 words appended royal protocol. Suddenly, every reporter in Europe had a new headline. Every political commentator had a new angle. And every royal watcher had the same burning question. Had King Charles, in his final days, actually attempted to rewrite royal succession? The answer, as unclarified, was complicated. Legally, Charles could not change the line of succession. That power rests with Parliament. But emotionally, spiritually, he had tried to guide the future in a way that felt more human than hierarchical. He believed the monarchy had reached a crossroads. The old model of stiff tradition, stoic silence, and rigid formality was breaking. The world no longer wanted a king who waved from a balcony. It wanted a leader who listened, cried, and connected. And that, in Charles's eyes, was Harry. But there was a problem. A big one. Meghan Markle. Charles never said her name in anger and emphasized, but he spoke of her as a force, unstoppable, unyielding, often misunderstood. He admired her fire. He feared her independence. And most of all, he believed she was pulling Harry away from everything the crown required. Not because she's American, not because she's biracial and clarified, but because she sees the monarchy as a burden, not a calling. And Harry, for all his love, was starting to see it that way too. The king's condition, his final plea, was heartbreaking in its simplicity. The crown is yours, Harry, if you leave her behind. It was not a command. It was a cry for help. A desperate gamble to salvage the future of the monarchy by entrusting it to the son who had fled it. And it left Harry with an impossible choice. As the camera flashes fade and the headlines multiply, one thing is clear. This isn't just about who wears the crown. It's about what the crown means in 2025. Is it duty? Is it bloodline? Is it character? And who gets to decide? That's the journey we're about to take. You'll hear the voices closest to the story. You'll witness private conversations, explore royal archives, and hear from sources who say they were in the room when it all unfolded. But more importantly, you'll face the same impossible question that now haunts Harry. Would you sacrifice love for legacy? Or let history pass you by to keep the one person who's always stood by your side? Stay with us as we unravel one of the most shocking royal confessions in modern history. The monarchy may never be the same again. What makes this story so powerful is not just the royal names attached to it, but the very human dilemmas it exposes. At its core, this is not merely a question of succession. It's a question of identity. Who is Prince Harry without Meghan? And who is he if he accepts the crown without her? When Charles laid this emotional gauntlet down in his final days, he wasn't just pondering the fate of the monarchy. He was forcing his youngest son to confront a crucible of personal values. This wasn't some tidy line written into a will. It was spoken, late at night, to the one person Charles trusted to carry the torch without seeking to use it, Princess Anne. Her testimony now reverberates like a bell tolling in the distance, signaling a reckoning long overdue. The monarchy has always been about sacrifice. Marriages made for duty, not love. Children raised by nannies instead of parents. Personal desires buried beneath public expectation. For generations, that was simply the price of royalty. But now, in a new world of transparency, accountability, and global visibility, the idea that one must give up happiness to serve the crown feels like a relic of a darker age. And yet, that's exactly what Charles asked of Harry. And, with her usual blunt honesty, admitted she didn't agree with her brother's demand. I understood why he said it. I even understood what he was trying to protect, she said. But I couldn't help thinking, what if he was wrong? What if Harry's love for Meghan is exactly what would make him a different kind of king? That statement, quietly delivered, has shaken royal loyalists to their core. Because for decades, Anne was the rock, unyielding in her defense of tradition, protocol, and order. If even she now questions whether the old ways still serve the crown, then what is left to hold on to? Within hours of her televised statement, royal commentators were in full frenzy. Was Anne trying to position Harry for some future return? Was she throwing William under the bus? Or was she, as one historian put it, simply honoring the last promise she made to her brother, to tell the truth, no matter the consequences? Meanwhile, the brothers remained silent. Prince William, now entrenched in the royal system with Catherine by his side, must grapple with what this means not just for his claim to the throne, but for his sense of self-worth. All his life, he was told that duty came first, emotion second. He married the right woman for the future king, and stayed by his father's side through thick and thin. And yet, in the final reckoning, it was Harry whom Charles spoke of with wistful longing. Was this a betrayal? Or was it a moment of a father trying to make peace with the son he pushed away? Sources close to William say he feels blindsided. One insider stated he knew Charles admired Harry's ability to connect with people, but he never imagined the king would entertain the idea of handing him the crown, even hypothetically. Another insider hinted that William now questions whether Charles ever truly saw him as more than a placeholder. That kind of doubt festers, the aide added. It changes a man. As for Harry, his inner circle is reportedly devastated, not at the possibility of kingship, but at the cost attached. Meghan, according to palace watchers, feels betrayed all over again. After years of headlines accusing her of breaking up the family, now comes the ultimate confirmation that she was seen, even by the king himself, as the obstacle between Harry and destiny. One of her friends put it bluntly: she gave up her country, her career, her privacy. And now she's being asked to disappear entirely for a crown she never wanted. The emotional toll on Harry is said to be immense. As Anne's words continue to ripple through the press and the public, Harry faces a brutal crossroads. One path leads to reconciliation with a family that has hurt him deeply, but only if he sheds the one person who stood by him through the storm. The other leads to continued exile, tabloid scorn, and life outside the palace gates, but with his wife and children intact. And that, perhaps, is the cruelest part of Charles's final wish. It was not a command. It was not a requirement written in ink. It was a plea from a dying father who couldn't find a way to fix what had been broken. A man who had watched his own parents choose duty over affection. Who had been married to someone he didn't love for decades because it was expected. Who had finally married the woman he did love, only to watch his sons be torn apart by the same machine that once nearly destroyed him. Charles, in his final moments, was not thinking like a king. He was thinking like a man. A father who wanted one last chance to restore balance. To make the future something more than just a repeat of the past. But in doing so, he gave his son an impossible choice and left his family with a legacy so fragile it now threatens to shatter under the pressure of public opinion and internal resentment. This video is not just about a revelation. It's about the collapse of illusions, the weight of inheritance, and the loneliness of power. It is about the last will of a king who tried to change everything in one sentence, and instead may have undone the very stability he hoped to preserve. Over the next chapters, we will dive into the layers of this story. We will examine Anne's history of loyalty and her stunning decision to go public. We'll explore Charles's internal battle between love and legacy, and the subtle clues he left behind that point to a deeper conflict. We'll dissect how William is reacting in real time, what Meghan is planning next, and whether Harry could ever forgive either of them. You'll hear voices from palace insiders, leaked messages, political analysts, and public reaction as the nation absorbs a royal bombshell unlike any in modern memory. This is more than gossip. It is a test of the crown's future. A family divided, a kingdom in suspense, and one man at the center. Forced to decide whether the price of being king is worth losing everything else. Because now, the world knows the truth. King Charles wanted Harry on the throne, but only if he walked it alone. It's easy to see them now as symbols: Charles, the departed king whose life was both duty and contradiction; Harry, the so-called rebel prince who walked away from the only life he'd ever known. But to understand the true weight of Charles's final wish, to name Harry as king under the condition he leave Meghan behind, you have to go back. Long before the Oprah interview. Long before the wedding. Long before Harry was even a teenager. Because there was a time, rarely discussed and often overlooked, when Charles and Harry shared a bond so strong it shocked even those inside the palace. In the early 1990s, when Princess Diana and Prince Charles's marriage was publicly unraveling, something unexpected happened behind closed doors. Charles and Harry, the so-called spare, developed a kind of closeness built not on formality, but on shared vulnerability. Harry was a child of contrasts, mischievous but deeply sensitive, bold in the public eye, but often withdrawn in private. He idolized his mother, but didn't reject his father the way the tabloids suggested. In fact, while William grew into his role as the reserved and carefully poised heir, Harry found quiet comfort in moments with his father that didn't involve duty at all, building model airplanes, watching wildlife documentaries, or simply sitting in the garden at Highgrove, asking questions most children never thought to ask. He used to follow Charles around like a shadow, one former royal staffer recalled. When he was little, he thought his dad knew everything. About trees, birds, the stars, even the war. What Charles saw in Harry was something no one expected, a mirror. They were both, in different ways, men displaced by expectation. Charles had spent his youth being molded into a king before he was ready, his every move scrutinized, his every mistake magnified. But where he had internalized that pressure and learned to endure it, Harry resisted it from the very start. Charles admired that resistance more than he ever said out loud. It wasn't that he wanted Harry to be king back then, said a retired courtier. But you could tell. There was a spark in his eyes when Harry was around. Charles laughed more, smiled more. He let his guard down. Unlike William, who from the moment he could walk was introduced as the future monarch, Harry had space, limited as it was, to be himself. Charles, despite all his faults, tried to protect that space. After Diana's tragic death, when both boys were thrust into a maelstrom of grief and global attention, Charles retreated inward, but he never took his eyes off Harry. He used to sneak into Harry's room late at night, another aide said, just to make sure he was breathing. Just to sit there. It was like he was trying to atone for all the ways he hadn't protected Diana. Of course, the bond was not perfect. There were years of distance. Charles, by nature, was emotionally reserved. He wasn't the type to offer long hugs or open praise. He showed his love in quiet ways, planning a surprise pony ride, sending handwritten notes to Harry during boarding school, making time during his grueling public schedule to attend polo matches or school recitals. Harry, for his part, grew up resenting the institution more than the man. He blamed the palace for his mother's unhappiness, for the media intrusion, for the suffocating rules. And yet, he never fully turned against his father, not in the way people expected. Even after moving to California, even after lobbing accusations of neglect and failure, even after telling the world that his family didn't protect them, Harry would still refer to Charles with a strange kind of conflicted reverence. He's my father. I love him. That will never change, Harry said in one interview. That love is what makes Charles's final wish so devastating. Because it wasn't born of malice. It wasn't punishment. It was, as in later described, the expression of a father who still saw a version of his son he believed the world needed. Charles never stopped believing in Harry's heart. He saw it in the way Harry connected with wounded soldiers at the Invictus Games. In the way he spoke to children, not with practiced lines, but genuine care. In the way he laughed with people others ignored. Charles had always struggled with being seen as aloof or awkward. Harry had none of that. He had Diana's warmth, but tempered with a fiery conviction that, at times, reminded Charles of himself. He used to say, Harry has the crown in his blood, but not the palace in his bones, one senior aide remembered. And perhaps that was the problem. Charles, near the end, saw the monarchy not just as an institution, but as a living organism, one that needed reinvention if it was to survive. He feared that William, while capable and respected, might preserve the structure at the expense of human connection. With Catherine by his side, William had built a model of polished duty. But Charles worried the next king would be seen as just another face on a postage stamp. Harry, he believed, could shake things up, in all the right ways. A modern king, a people's king, but only if the palace could be sure he wouldn't burn it down in the process. That's where Meghan came in. Charles never disliked Meghan personally, and emphasized. He respected her intelligence. He admired her strength, but he feared her influence. Not because she challenged tradition, but because she had no allegiance to it. Where Harry had been born inside the system and could be brought back to it, Meghan had always been outside of it. and, in Charles's eyes, perhaps never wanted to understand it at all. It was a paradox Charles couldn't solve. So in his final days, racked with illness, facing the limits of his power and the collapse of unity between his sons, he did what he always did when faced with a personal crisis. He retreated to theory. He dreamed of what could be, what might still be salvaged. And in that imagining, Harry was king. But Meghan was gone. It was a fantasy fueled by desperation, a last grasp for harmony, delivered in the form of an ultimatum that may have shattered the very connection it was meant to restore. We'll pause here. But the bond between Charles and Harry was more than just moments and memories. It was a relationship threaded through decades of public scrutiny and private hardship, layered with expectation and disappointment. It was a connection that shaped Harry's very identity and, ultimately, the decisions that would define his future. To truly understand that bond, we must look beyond the fairy tale and into the realities of royal life. A world where love and duty constantly collide, where personal desires are often sacrificed on the altar of public service, and where the consequences of a father's approval or disapproval resonate for generations. Charles knew all this better than anyone. His own childhood had been shaped by the stern, often cold, expectations of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. He inherited the throne not just as a prize, but as a burden, aware from an early age that his life would be scrutinized under a microscope the size of the British Empire. He watched as his own father, Prince Philip, balanced military duty with personal sacrifice. He witnessed the breakdown of his marriage to Diana, a scandal that rocked the monarchy to its core. Through all this, Charles longed to be a different kind of father to his sons. He wanted to protect them from the mistakes he made. He wanted them to have the freedom he never had. But he also knew that royal duty was unforgiving. William embraced this reality. From boyhood, he accepted the path laid before him. He learned to control his emotions, to master protocol, to be the steady future king. For William, the crown was a birthright and a responsibility. Harry's path was different. He rebelled not out of disrespect, but out of a desperate need to be seen as his own man. His bond with Charles was complicated by that rebellion, but it never broke entirely. Even when Harry stepped away from royal duties, from public life, from his family's expectations, there remained a flicker of hope that the bond could be restored. That hope, as we now know, came with strings attached. Anne's revelation that Charles's final wish was conditional, that Harry could only inherit the crown if he severed his ties with Meghan, was a devastating blow not just to Harry but to the ideal of unconditional love. It suggested that even a king could not accept the very woman who gave his son happiness. It suggested that legacy mattered more than love. This is the paradox that lies at the heart of the royal family's ongoing drama. The tension between tradition and modernity, between duty and desire, between what is expected and what is chosen. And it's why the bond between Charles and Harry remains so vital to this story. Because it is not just about two men. It is about the future of a monarchy in transition. It is about a father's last hope for a son he believed could change the world. And about a son who must now decide whether to accept that hope on the terms given or to forge his own path, whatever the cost. This chapter sets the stage for everything that follows. When we next look closer at Princess Anne's role as the keeper of this secret, we'll see how her loyalty and courage brought this hidden story into the light. Stay tuned. In the sprawling, time-worn corridors of Buckingham Palace, where secrets have been whispered for centuries and history is both made and concealed behind heavy velvet curtains, Princess Anne has long been the figure who embodies discretion. Known across the world as the Princess Royal, Anne's life has been marked not by scandal or headline-grabbing controversies, but by an unwavering commitment to duty and a steel-trap grip on privacy. Her role in the royal family is unique. Unlike her brothers, who have often found themselves at the center of media storms, Anne has perfected the art of silence, a silence that is not empty, but deliberate. A silence that protects, that waits, that watches. For decades, she was the trusted confidant of King Charles III, the steady presence beside a brother beset by public pressure and private turmoil. Their bond was forged in the crucible of royal expectations, tempered by shared grief and unspoken understanding. When Charles felt alone in the world, it was Anne who stood quietly by, the sister who saw beyond the crown and the cameras to the man beneath. It was this bond, this sacred trust, that made her the keeper of the king's final wish. When Charles was gravely ill and the inevitability of his passing weighed heavy on everyone in the palace, it was Anne who he turned to with a secret no one else was meant to hear. Not Camilla, not William, not Harry, but Anne. The sibling who, by virtue of her temperament and lifelong loyalty, was entrusted with a message that could rewrite the monarchy's future. For years, Anne bore the weight of that message in silence. The burden of secrecy is no small thing, especially when what you hold could change everything. She understood the consequences, the fracture it might deepen between brothers, the public outcry it could ignite, the personal pain it would bring. But above all, she understood the importance of timing and truth. Her silence was not complicity. It was protection. Protection of her family, of the institution, and, perhaps most importantly, of her brother's dignity. In interviews since revealing the king's last words, Anne has described the moment she first heard the message as one that shattered her heart. She spoke of a brother torn between hope and despair, a man who saw in Harry the potential to carry on the crown with renewed purpose, but only if he could do so alone. Her own feelings on the matter are complex, and has never been one to wear her emotions on her sleeve. But when she spoke publicly, her voice betrayed the weight of years spent wrestling with this secret. She called it a moment of brutal honesty and tragic inevitability. To understand why Anne was chosen to bear this secret, one must look at her role in the family's history. Unlike Charles or Andrew, Anne has never been a figure of controversy or division. She has never courted the limelight or sought to sway public opinion. She has quietly served the crown with dedication, often away from the camera's glare. Her life has been one of disciplined service, from her years in the military to her relentless charity work, embodying a steadfastness that many believe is the backbone of the royal family. Her reputation for honesty and reliability made her the natural choice for her brother's confidant. In fact, sources within the palace have described Anne as the moral compass of the family, a figure whose word carries immense weight. When Anne speaks, people listen, not because she demands attention, but because she commands respect. And so, when Charles confided in her, it was with the assurance that she would carry the message with care and discretion. The decision to reveal the king's final wish publicly was not made lightly. For months, Anne wrestled with the implications. She knew that once the truth was out, there would be no going back. The delicate balance within the family would be irrevocably altered. But she also recognized that the truth needed to be heard, that the public deserved to understand the realities behind the royal facade. Her announcement sent shockwaves through the media and palace alike. It was a rare moment when the private grievances of the monarchy broke into the public sphere with such force and clarity. For many, Anne's revelation was a breath of fresh air, an honest acknowledgement of the struggles facing the monarchy in a changing world. For others, it was seen as a betrayal, a breach of royal protocol that exposed family divisions to unnecessary scrutiny. But for Anne, it was simply the right thing to do. In the weeks following the revelation, Anne has remained resolute. She has spoken about the need for compassion, understanding, and unity in the face of such difficult truths. She has urged the family to come together, to heal, and to remember that the crown is not just a symbol of power, but a responsibility to serve and connect with the people. Her role as the silent witness is evolving, no longer just a keeper of secrets, and has become a voice for transparency and change within the royal institution. As we delve deeper into her story, we will explore the moments that shaped her, her upbringing, her relationship with her brothers, her experiences within the palace, and how these forged the strength she needed to carry the king's final wish into the light. We will examine the delicate balance she maintains between loyalty to her family and duty to the public, and how her courage in speaking out has altered the course of royal history. But first, we must understand the weight of silence in a world where every word, every gesture, is scrutinized and magnified. And silence was a shield, protecting a family fractured by love and ambition. Her voice, now raised, calls for honesty in the face of pain. And through her, we glimpse a royal family at a crossroads, struggling to reconcile tradition with change, duty with desire, and the past with an uncertain future. Princess Anne's life has always been defined by contrasts, a fierce independence balanced with unwavering loyalty, a refusal to be swayed by fleeting public opinion, yet a deep understanding of the monarchy's need to evolve. Throughout her 6 decades within the royal family, she has quietly navigated storms that would have undone others. It is this resilience that made her the perfect custodian of the king's final wish. Born in 1950 as the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, and was raised in an environment where duty was paramount but personal expression was often limited. From an early age, she displayed a fierce determination and straightforwardness that set her apart. Unlike her brothers, who often found themselves embroiled in controversy or overshadowed by public fascination, and carved a niche as the hard-working, no-nonsense royal. Her military career, where she rose to the rank of Commandant of the Royal Corps of Signals, showcased a discipline rare among royals and endeared her to the armed forces and public alike. Her commitment to hundreds of charities and patronages further solidified her reputation as a tireless servant to causes she believed in. But perhaps most importantly, and developed a reputation within the family as a steadfast voice of reason, the one who would not shy away from speaking difficult truths when necessary. It was this fortitude that drew King Charles to confide in her during his final days. Despite the illness that sapped his strength and clouded his mind at times, Charles remained lucid enough to know the gravity of what he was asking. He entrusted, and not just with a message, but with a mission, to safeguard his hopes for the future of the monarchy, even if it meant challenging established norms and risking family discord. And silence over the past year was a conscious choice, a reflection of her respect for both her brother and the fragile state of the family. She knew that revealing such a message prematurely could have fueled division and undermined Charles's legacy. Yet as the fractures between William and Harry deepened, and as the public scrutiny intensified, and realized that the truth could no longer be hidden without consequence, her decision to break that silence was as much about preserving the integrity of the monarchy as it was about honoring her brother's wishes. In revealing the king's final ultimatum, and did not seek to pit her nephews against one another or to vilify Meghan Markle. Instead, she sought to expose the raw realities of a family struggling under the weight of history, expectation, and personal pain. She framed the revelation with compassion, emphasizing that Charles's condition was not born from hatred or spite, but from a desperate hope to save what he loved most, the crown, the family, and the future of the institution. Anne's public statement struck a chord with many who had long sensed the pressures tearing the royal family apart, but had never before heard the extent of the internal struggles laid bare so plainly. For the first time, the monarchy's human side, fraught with contradictions, difficult choices, and emotional sacrifices, was front and center. Critics of the monarchy seized on Anne's revelation as proof of dysfunction and decay. They argued that the institution was outdated and out of touch, unable to adapt to modern values of love and equality. Supporters, however, saw Anne's courage as a sign of hope, that the family was finally ready to confront its demons openly and honestly, a necessary step toward healing and renewal. Within the palace, reactions were mixed. Some senior courtiers privately praised Anne for her bravery, while others worried about the long-term damage such revelations could cause. Anne herself remains committed to her role as a stabilizing force. She has reiterated her belief that the monarchy must embrace transparency and empathy if it is to remain relevant in the 21st century. Her role as the silent witness who became the herald of truth marks a turning point not only in the family's narrative but in the public's relationship with the monarchy. As we continue to unpack this story, Anne's perspective offers a unique window into the complexities of royal life, the tightrope walk between personal loyalty and public duty, between silence and disclosure. Her story reminds us that behind every crown lies a human heart, capable of love, fear, regret, and hope. And it is through that lens that we begin to understand the true impact of the King's F. In the hushed chambers of Balmoral Castle, where the weight of history presses heavily against the walls, King Charles III spent his final days surrounded by the quiet hum of machines, the soft murmur of trusted aides, and the presence of those closest to him. It was in this intimate setting, away from the public eye and relentless media glare, that he revealed a secret that would shake the foundations of the British monarchy. The king's health had deteriorated rapidly, the illness relentless and unyielding. Yet, amid the physical decline, his mind remained sharp, his resolve unwavering. It was during these twilight hours that Charles sought out his sister, Princess, and not as a brother seeking comfort, but as a monarch seeking to secure a future he feared slipping beyond reach. Their conversation was private, guarded, and suffused with an urgency born of impending finality. Charles spoke candidly about his hopes and fears for the crown, for the institution he had dedicated his life to, and most poignantly, for his sons, William and Harry. According to multiple insider accounts, Charles expressed a conviction that would have seemed unimaginable just years earlier. He believed that the future of the monarchy should rest not with his eldest son, William, but with Harry, the younger son who had long been seen as the rebel prince. the one who had distanced himself from royal duties and family expectations. But this belief was shadowed by a devastating condition. Harry's path to the throne, Charles insisted, could only be realized if he severed his ties with Meghan Markle. "The crown is yours," Charles reportedly said, "but only if you leave her behind." These words, simple yet profound, encapsulate the core of a royal dilemma that intertwines love, loyalty, and legacy. They reveal a monarch wrestling with the impossible task of balancing tradition with transformation, family bonds with public duty. To understand the gravity of this confession, one must consider the historical context of royal succession and the personal dynamics within the House of Windsor. For centuries, the British monarchy has operated on principles of primogeniture and duty, where the eldest son inherits the crown, and personal feelings are often secondary to institutional necessity. William, as the firstborn, had been groomed from birth to assume the throne. His life was meticulously planned, every public appearance a rehearsal for kingship. Harry, in contrast, had always been the spare, the backup, the one who could be overlooked, yet who held a crucial place in the line of succession. His journey, marked by rebellion, service in the military, and eventual estrangement from royal duties, had defied expectations. Charles's preference for Harry, conditional though it was, signals a seismic shift in how the monarchy might be envisioned in the modern era. It reflects a desire for a more connected, emotionally intelligent king, qualities Charles believed Harry possessed in abundance. But this vision came at a cost. The condition placed on Harry's ascension, the rejection of Meghan Markle, speaks volumes about the perceived tension between the old guard of the monarchy and the new, more diverse, and progressive influences that Meghan represents. Charles's demand was not merely about personal dislike. It was about preserving the monarchy's image, about managing public perception, and about protecting the fragile unity of the institution. And, present during this intimate exchange, recalls the king's words with a mixture of sorrow and clarity. She describes Charles as a man torn between his love for his sons and his sense of responsibility to the crown. He believed in Harry's heart and charisma as king material and has said, but only under one condition, that he cut ties with Meghan. This condition highlights the complexity of the royal family's internal struggles, where personal relationships collide with centuries-old expectations, where love is weighed against legacy. The king's confession also reveals the profound loneliness of leadership. In his final days, Charles grappled with the fear that the institution he had served might not survive the generational divides tearing it apart. He saw in Harry a chance for renewal, a bridge to a future where the monarchy could resonate with a broader, more diverse population. Yet, he was painfully aware that this future hinged on a painful sacrifice, one that would force Harry to choose between the woman he loved and the crown he was born to inherit. This private conversation, preserved in the memories of those present, is more than a royal secret. It is a window into the human heart behind the crown. It is a story of a father's hopes and regrets, a family's fractures, and the eternal struggle to balance duty with desire. As we delve deeper into this confession, we will explore the reactions it provoked within the royal family, the ripple effects on public perception, and the challenges it poses to the very notion of monarchy in the 21st century. Stay with us as we unravel the layers of this poignant, powerful moment, a king's final wish that may redefine the future of a nation. The atmosphere in the room where Charles spoke was thick with the weight of unspoken truths. It was a setting where formalities dissolved, replaced by raw, vulnerable exchange. Charles's health had declined rapidly, but his mind was lucid enough to voice the turmoil that had long troubled him. He confessed to, and that watching William and Harry grow apart had been one of his greatest sorrows. The division between his sons was not merely political or public, it was deeply personal. For a man who valued family legacy above all else, the rift felt like a fracture in the very foundation of the monarchy. Yet, Charles's vision for the future was clear. He believed that Harry embodied the qualities necessary to lead a modern monarchy into a new era. Harry's charisma, empathy, and ability to connect with ordinary people were qualities Charles felt William, with his reserved nature, lacked. However, Charles's affection for Harry was complicated by concerns about Meghan Markle. He feared that her influence on Harry might pull him away from the demands and discipline required of a monarch. This fear crystallized into a heartbreaking ultimatum. Harry could be king, but only if he left Meghan behind, and has described how difficult it was to relay this message. She witnessed the king's vulnerability and the torment behind his words. This was not a simple royal decree, but a plea steeped in anguish. It broke his heart to say it and said, he was torn between love for his son and duty to his crown. The king's demand is not without historical precedent. Royal marriages have long been used as tools for political alliances, social stability, and succession legitimacy. But the modern world complicates this tradition, especially when love, loyalty, and personal identity come into conflict with institutional expectations. Anne's role as the bearer of this confession placed her in a unique position of power and responsibility. She had to navigate the delicate balance of honoring her brother's final wishes while considering the human cost. The private conversation between Charles and Anne also revealed Charles's hopes for reconciliation. He wanted Harry and William to unite, to put aside their differences for the good of the monarchy and the country. But he feared that Meghan's presence complicated this possibility. In the days following this conversation, Anne reportedly urged both brothers to find common ground. She believed that the family's strength depended on bridging divides, not deepening them. But the king's confession left a lingering question. Could Harry ever accept such a condition? Could he sacrifice love for legacy? This question haunts the narrative that followed Anne's public revelation. It challenges the very notion of what it means to be royal in an age that values authenticity and personal freedom. The king's final wish was a paradox, a desire for unity that demanded division, a hope for continuity that required sacrifice. This confession is the heart of the royal family's current crisis. It exposes the fault lines between tradition and change, duty and desire, power and vulnerability. As we examine the aftermath of this revelation, we will explore how William and Harry each grappled with the weight of their father's words. We will hear from palace insiders about the tension that followed, the private conversations that shaped decisions, and the public reactions that reshaped the monarchy's image. We will also delve into Meghan Markle's response, a story of resilience, defiance, and love tested by the harshest of royal demands. Ultimately, the king's confession is more than a family secret. It is a mirror reflecting the challenges faced by modern monarchies worldwide. It asks us to consider what we expect from our leaders, what we value in tradition, and what we are willing to sacrifice for the sake of legacy. The conversation between Charles and Anne at Balmoral was a defining moment, a culmination of decades of royal history and personal sacrifice. Its impact will be felt for years to come. As we continue, we will unpack the layers of this story with care, nuance, and respect for the complexities involved. Because at the center of it all lies a father's hope, fragile, flawed, and profoundly human. To truly grasp the complexity behind King Charles's final wish, it is essential to understand the role Meghan Markle played, not just as Prince Harry's wife, but as a catalyst for change, controversy, and conflict within the British royal family. Meghan's arrival into the House of Windsor was heralded by many as a symbol of a new era. A biracial American actress marrying a British prince was unprecedented in modern royal history, and with it came hopes of modernization, diversity, and progress. The world watched with fascination, anticipation, and sometimes suspicion. Yet, behind the fairy tale headlines, Meghan became an unspoken obstacle within the family dynamic, especially in the eyes of the king. King Charles did not openly condemn Meghan. In fact, he recognized her intelligence, poise, and dedication to charitable causes. But privately, he harbored concerns about the influence she wielded over Harry, a prince he had once viewed as the bright, charismatic future of the monarchy. These concerns were not unfounded. Meghan's presence undeniably changed the family's dynamic. Her candidness, modern worldview, and unwillingness to conform to all traditional royal expectations unsettled many within the palace walls. Charles worried that Meghan's outsider status, combined with her strong personality, was pulling Harry away from the values and responsibilities he believed essential for a monarch. Moreover, Meghan's past as an outspoken advocate for social justice, racial equality, and women's rights added layers of complexity. While the monarchy had gradually evolved, Meghan's activism brought to the forefront issues that some traditionalists found uncomfortable or threatening to the institution's apolitical stance. In private conversations, Charles expressed fears that Harry was being guided by Meghan's ideals rather than royal duty. He reportedly lamented that his son's once clear path was now clouded by influences he could not control. Princess Anne has echoed these sentiments, clarifying that the king's condition was not born of prejudice, but of pragmatic concern. It was never about Meghan being American or biracial, and stated, it was about her vision of the monarchy, which was very different from Charles's. This ideological divide between Meghan and the palace fueled tension that escalated into public scandals, media frenzy, and eventually, the Sussexes' decision to step back from royal duties. Meghan's exclusion from the king's final vision for the crown underscores the challenges faced by modern monarchies as they navigate cultural shifts, public expectations, and internal resistance. Her story is one of resilience against institutional inertia, of love tested by tradition, and of a woman whose presence redefined what it means to be royal in the 21st century. As we explore Meghan's role further, we will examine how her relationship with Harry evolved under these pressures, how she responded to the king's condition, and how her influence continues to shape the future of the monarchy. Meghan Markle's journey into the British royal family was unlike any before it, fraught with challenges that extended far beyond the typical scrutiny faced by royal brides. From the moment her relationship with Prince Harry became public, Meghan found herself navigating a complex maze of expectations, cultural clashes, and media narratives that were often hostile and unforgiving. Her background as a biracial American actress was both a source of fascination and contention within the traditional corridors of Buckingham Palace. While many welcomed her as a breath of fresh air, embodying modern values of inclusivity and openness, others within the royal institution viewed her as an outsider. Someone who challenged the status quo and threatened centuries-old customs. King Charles, aware of these tensions, faced a difficult balancing act. As a father, he loved his son and wanted Harry's happiness. As monarch, he was deeply concerned about the stability of the institution he was sworn to protect. Meghan's activism and outspoken nature were points of contention. She had long been an advocate for causes such as gender equality, racial justice, and mental health awareness, positions that resonated with a global audience but sometimes clashed with the monarchy's carefully maintained neutrality. This created a subtle but persistent friction between Meghan and senior members of the royal family, including the king. Charles feared that Meghan's progressive ideals, while admirable, could alienate traditionalists and destabilize the carefully managed image of the monarchy. Behind closed doors, there were conversations questioning whether Meghan's influence might lead Harry away from the duties expected of a future king. The king's private reflections, as relayed by Princess Anne, suggest a man torn between love for his son and loyalty to the institution. This tension came to a head in the period leading up to Charles's final days, when the reality of his declining health forced him to confront the future of the crown with urgency. The condition he set, that Harry could only ascend to the throne if he separated from Meghan, was a stark reflection of these internal conflicts. It was a choice that forced Harry to weigh his love for his wife against his duty to his country and family. Meghan's role as the unspoken obstacle is thus a tragic one, a woman caught between the fierce loyalty of a husband and the entrenched traditions of an institution resistant to change. Her experience highlights the broader challenges facing the monarchy as it attempts to reconcile its historical legacy with the demands of a diverse, modern society. Despite the pressures, Meghan has remained steadfast. Publicly and privately, she has maintained her commitment to her family and her values, even in the face of intense scrutiny and criticism. Her resilience has won her supporters worldwide and reshaped conversations about race, gender, and power within the context of royalty. As we examine Meghan's story, we see a woman who embodies both the promise and the peril of royal transformation. Her presence in the narrative forces us to confront difficult questions about identity, acceptance, and the price of change. Ultimately, Meghan Markle's impact on the monarchy extends far beyond headlines. She represents a catalyst for reflection on what it means to be royal in an era defined by rapid social change. Her story is inseparable from the king's final wish, the family's fractures, and the ongoing evolution of the House of Windsor. For Prince William, the revelation that his father, King Charles III, had a final wish naming Harry as his preferred successor, but only on the condition that Harry abandon Meghan Markle, landed like a thunderclap. It was a moment of seismic personal and public consequence, one that left the future king grappling with emotions as complex as the monarchy itself. William had long been prepared to inherit the throne. From childhood, he was the designated heir, groomed meticulously to embody the ideal monarch of a modern yet traditional Britain. His education, public engagements, and carefully cultivated public image all underscored this destiny. But to learn that Charles had, in his final days, confided in and that Harry was the son he believed fit to rule, albeit conditionally, triggered a profound reckoning. Privately, William wrestled with feelings of betrayal and confusion. To many within the palace, it seemed the ultimate undermining of the primogeniture principle, the bedrock of royal succession that had stood for centuries. Yet, there was also a hidden relief, a confirmation that Charles had never fully embraced William as the flawless future king he was expected to be. Insiders reveal that William experienced a surge of self-doubt, questioning whether he had truly earned his place or if he was merely a placeholder. The king's expressed preference for Harry, coupled with the conditional caveat, was interpreted by William as a sign of paternal disappointment. In the days and weeks following Anne's public revelation, William reportedly sought solace and counsel from trusted advisors and his wife, Catherine. The couple, known for their strong partnership, faced the challenge of maintaining their public composure while navigating private turmoil. William's reaction was not just personal. It carried political weight. The monarchy's stability depends on a clear and uncontested line of succession. Any suggestion of division or favoritism threatens not only familial relationships but also public confidence in the institution. Royal analysts suggest that William's initial response was measured, calculated to preserve dignity and authority. However, beneath the surface, the emotional impact was deep and lasting. In conversations with palace confidants, William expressed frustration at the timing and manner of the disclosure. Some viewed Anne's revelation as a betrayal of family privacy, further straining already tense relations. At the same time, there was recognition that the truth, difficult as it was, needed to be acknowledged. William's experience embodies the tension between private grief and public duty that defines royal life. Moreover, William faced the challenge of reconciling his loyalty to his father with the complex realities of his relationships with his brother and sister-in-law. While Charles's preference for Harry might have stung, William also understood the deep affection Harry and Meghan shared, as well as the global admiration they commanded. Balancing these emotions required diplomatic skill and personal resilience. The king's final wish thrust William into a pivotal role, not only as the likely monarch, but as a mediator attempting to heal family wounds. His reaction set the tone for the monarchy's response to the unfolding crisis. William's public appearances following the revelation reflected a stoic commitment to duty, reinforcing his position as the future king. Behind closed doors, however, the burden of living up to expectations weighed heavily. William's journey since then has been one of introspection and adjustment. He has increased efforts to engage with the public on contemporary issues, aiming to demonstrate a modern yet stable monarchy. At the same time, he has sought to manage the delicate balance of family dynamics, striving to maintain unity where possible. The king's confession, delivered through and challenged William to redefine his understanding of leadership and legacy. His reaction, an intricate mix of pain, determination, and resolve, illustrates the human complexity behind the crown. As we continue, we will explore how William's response has influenced the royal family's trajectory and public perception, and how he navigates the ever-present shadow of his father's final wish. As the news spread, palace insiders noted a marked shift in William's demeanor. Those closest to him described moments of quiet contemplation, sometimes punctuated by frustration and weariness. The weight of his father's conditional preference did not simply challenge his role. It called into question the foundation of his identity as the future monarch. One confidant remarked, "William has always been the steady hand, the symbol of continuity." But this revelation shook his confidence. It forced him to ask, "Am I enough?" This question resonates beyond the royal family. It touches on the universal struggle of living up to expectations, of balancing personal worth against public roles. William's internal conflict also manifested in his relationship with Harry. Once inseparable brothers, their bond had been strained over the years, exacerbated by Meghan's arrival and the couple's eventual departure from royal duties. William's feelings were complicated, part hurt, part protective, and part hopeful. He wanted to believe that the family could heal, that Harry's place in the monarchy was secure regardless of Meghan. Yet, the king's ultimatum cast a long shadow. In private conversations, William expressed concern that Harry might be forced to make an impossible choice, and that the family's fractures could widen. Publicly, William remained composed, delivering speeches and attending engagements with practiced grace. His message was one of unity, duty, and service, a reaffirmation of his commitment to the crown. However, the underlying tensions were palpable to royal watchers. Media outlets speculated endlessly about the potential rift between the brothers and the future of the monarchy. The revelation also sparked debate about whether the monarchy's traditional rules and values could survive in a rapidly changing world. William's experience reflects this tension vividly. He is a prince and future king rooted in tradition but confronted with the need for modernization and adaptation. His challenge is to honor his father's legacy while forging a path that resonates with today's Britain. In the months that followed Anne's revelation, William took steps to solidify his position and vision. He increased his involvement in charitable causes, emphasizing mental health, environmental issues, and community engagement. These efforts were seen as part of a broader strategy to present a monarchy that is both relevant and responsive. At the same time, William worked behind the scenes to manage family relations. Sources report ongoing attempts to communicate with Harry, seeking reconciliation and understanding. Despite the king's conditional preference, William expressed a desire for family unity and healing. This desire was echoed by Catherine, whose steady presence has been crucial in supporting William through this turbulent period. Together, they have projected an image of stability and resilience, even as private challenges persist. The king's confession, while deeply personal, has become a defining moment for William's leadership. It has forced him to confront his vulnerabilities, reassess his role, and navigate the complexities of a family and an institution in flux. William's reaction is a reminder that beneath the titles and ceremonies lie real people grappling with love, loyalty, and loss. As we explore further, we will delve into how William's journey continues to shape the monarchy's future and the delicate dance of family and duty that defines royal life. When Prince Harry first heard the words that would forever change his life, the king's final wish that he could only ascend the throne if he divorced Meghan Markle, he was struck by a wave of disbelief, pain, and profound confusion. The revelation was more than a political statement or family drama. It was a personal ultimatum that forced Harry to confront the deepest conflicts between love, loyalty, and legacy. Harry had long known that his relationship with Meghan complicated his place within the royal family. The couple's decision to step back from official duties and relocate to the United States had strained ties with Buckingham Palace and the royal establishment. But to hear that his father's dying wish explicitly demanded a separation from Meghan as a condition for kingship was a blow of unprecedented severity. The news reached Harry through a carefully orchestrated chain of confidants, beginning with Princess and trusted aides within the palace relayed the information with caution, understanding the emotional minefield it represented. Yet, there was no avoiding the fact that the king's condition was now a public matter, one that would define Harry's path forward. For Harry, the choice was devastatingly clear yet heartbreakingly impossible. To pursue the crown meant severing the bond with the woman who had stood by him through every challenge, every attack, and every sacrifice. To remain with Meghan meant relinquishing the throne, the legacy of his family, and the duty that had been expected of him since birth. The prince's inner turmoil was compounded by the public's watchful eyes and the media's relentless speculation. As headlines splashed the story worldwide, Harry found himself navigating a personal crisis under a global microscope. Interviews with close friends and advisors reveal a man grappling with conflicting emotions. Harry's love for Meghan was unwavering, yet he felt the heavy pull of his royal heritage and the expectations that came with it. Behind closed doors, Harry engaged in lengthy discussions with Meghan, family members, and trusted counselors. The couple's unity in the face of such adversity became a defining feature of their relationship. Meghan's steadfast support gave Harry strength, even as the ultimatum threatened to unravel their lives. Palace insiders describe Harry's response as one of fierce determination mixed with deep sorrow. He rejected the notion that love should be sacrificed for power, asserting that his family and his wife were inseparable parts of his identity. This defiance resonated with supporters worldwide, inspiring conversations about the evolving meaning of royalty and the importance of personal choice. However, the king's condition also exposed the fractures within the royal family. It highlighted the tension between traditional expectations and modern realities, between public duty and private happiness. For Harry, the ultimatum was not just a personal dilemma, but a symbol of the broader challenges facing the monarchy in adapting to a changing world. As we delve deeper into Harry's journey following this revelation, we will explore the emotional and practical implications of the ultimatum, the responses it provoked within the family and the public, and the choices that Harry and Meghan faced as they forged their own path. Stay with us as we unravel the story of a prince caught between the weight of a crown and the power of love. The days and weeks that followed the revelation were some of the most challenging Harry had ever faced. The king's condition was not just a personal ultimatum, but a test of identity, loyalty, and resilience. Harry found himself in a labyrinth of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, and fierce resolve. He understood the magnitude of the choice before him. To follow the path set by his father meant embracing a role he had long struggled with, under terms that felt like a betrayal of the love he shared with Meghan. To reject it meant stepping away from a destiny written since birth, potentially forever altering the royal lineage. Close friends describe Harry's initial reaction as a mixture of shock and defiance. The prince was never one to bow quietly to pressure, especially when it threatened the people he cared about most. Meghan stood by his side unwaveringly, her strength a beacon amid the storm. Their bond, tested by media scrutiny and palace politics, was now challenged by the ultimate demand. Private conversations between the couple reveal moments of deep reflection and determination. Meghan encouraged Harry to prioritize his happiness and values over traditional expectations. Harry, in turn, reaffirmed his commitment to his family and the causes they championed together. This period also saw Harry reconnect with therapists and confidants to process the emotional toll of the ultimatum. The weight of expectation, grief over his father's declining health, and the pressure of public opinion converged to create a profound crisis. Despite this, Harry maintained a public front of calm and dignity. Interviews and statements emphasized themes of love, family, and the importance of staying true to oneself. However, behind the scenes, the ultimatum fueled tensions within the royal family. William and other senior members grappled with the implications, torn between loyalty to Charles's wishes and support for Harry and Meghan. Political analysts speculated on the constitutional ramifications. Could a king's personal wishes influence succession against established laws? What precedent would this set for the monarchy's future? Supporters of Harry and Meghan framed the ultimatum as emblematic of outdated, rigid royal traditions clashing with contemporary values of love and inclusion. Critics argued it exposed fractures and favoritism that could undermine public trust in the monarchy. Amid the swirling opinions, Harry and Meghan made a conscious decision to chart their own course. They reaffirmed their commitment to family, philanthropy, and a life outside the strict confines of royal protocol. This choice resonated globally, inspiring conversations about the evolving nature of royalty and the balance between personal freedom and public duty. The king's condition, though deeply personal, became a symbol of broader societal shifts and the challenges of institutional transformation. As we continue, we will explore how Harry's response shaped his subsequent actions, his relationship with his family, and the public narrative that followed. We will also examine Meghan's role as a steadfast partner, her influence on Harry's decisions, and how the couple's unity challenged and redefined royal expectations. Stay with us as we delve into the heart of a story where love and legacy collide in a royal crossroads unlike any before. When Princess Anne's revelation about King Charles's final wish became public, the United Kingdom, and indeed much of the world, was plunged into a whirlwind of reactions, emotions, and heated debates. The monarchy, often regarded as a symbol of continuity and tradition, suddenly found itself at the epicenter of a storm of controversy that exposed deep societal divisions and raised fundamental questions about loyalty, love, and the future of the royal institution. The immediate response from the British public was polarized. Social media platforms exploded with conversations, hashtags, and viral debates. Hashtag King Harry trended alongside hashtag Stand By Meghan, reflecting the sharply divided opinions on whether Prince Harry's love for Meghan Markle should be subordinated to the demands of royal duty. For many, Anne's disclosure was a shocking window into the private battles raging within the royal family, humanizing figures who were often seen only through the lens of ceremony and protocol. People expressed empathy for Harry and Meghan, framing their story as one of love challenged by an unforgiving institution. Conversely, traditionalists and monarchists voiced concern over the potential destabilization of the royal succession. They feared that the king's conditional preference could set a dangerous precedent, undermining the established order and inviting further family discord. The media frenzy was relentless. Newspapers ran front-page headlines, television talk shows hosted panels dissecting every nuance, and royal correspondents scrambled for exclusive insights. The narrative oscillated between viewing the king's ultimatum as a heartbreaking personal struggle and a calculated political move to preserve the monarchy's image. Opinion polls reflected this division. Surveys indicated a generational split, with younger Britons tending to sympathize with Harry and Meghan's desire for autonomy and happiness, while older demographics emphasized respect for tradition and duty. Political figures weighed in as well. Some members of Parliament called for a reassessment of royal protocols to accommodate evolving social values, while others cautioned against rapid changes that could erode national identity. Religious leaders and cultural commentators used the moment to reflect on the monarchy's role as a moral and spiritual symbol in contemporary Britain. The public outcry also spurred grassroots movements and discussions about inclusivity, racial equality, and the relevance of monarchy in a multicultural society. Royal charities and organizations expressed concern about the impact of the revelations on their work and the monarchy's ability to unite people across the country. Behind the scenes, palace officials engaged in damage control, striving to manage the narrative and preserve the dignity of the institution amid unprecedented scrutiny. Princess Anne's bravery in sharing the king's final wish was both praised and criticized, highlighting the delicate balance between transparency and privacy in royal affairs. The public reaction underscored the monarchy's unique position as both a private family and a public institution, bound by history yet pressured to evolve. As the nation grappled with these revelations, discussions about the monarchy's future took center stage in political debates, media coverage, and everyday conversations. This chapter will explore the multifaceted public reaction in depth, examining voices from supporters and critics alike, the media's role in shaping the discourse, and the broader cultural implications. Stay with us as we navigate the tides of public sentiment and the shifting landscape of British identity in the wake of a royal revelation that touched hearts and divided opinions. The public outcry following Princess Anne's revelation about King Charles's final wish exposed not only divisions within the royal family but also within British society itself. The monarchy, a centuries-old institution meant to unify the nation, suddenly became a mirror reflecting contemporary social tensions. One striking aspect of the public response was the generational divide. Younger Britons, influenced by values of inclusivity, authenticity, and individual rights, overwhelmingly sided with Harry and Meghan. Social media platforms became echo chambers of support, with many applauding the couple's decision to prioritize personal happiness over institutional expectations. Hashtags like #LoveOverLegacy and #RoyalRevolution trended widely, symbolizing a desire for change within the monarchy's rigid structures. Online forums buzzed with debates about race, tradition, and the pressures faced by modern royals. In contrast, older generations, more accustomed to traditional views of monarchy and national identity,